This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in the NFL here on Place to Be Nation Sports Network 2.0. Playoff time, baby. I'm your host, the Cowboy, joined by my co-host, the one, the only, the reason you guys tune in, John D'Amato. What's happening, John? You ready for these games?
Are you kidding me? These are my two favorite weekends of the year. Just 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday. Concentrate on one game at a time. I don't want to belabor the point, but you fantasy fucktards can go into your little shells for the until next year, because it's all about just winning and losing, and it's all about the players on the field.
It's true. This is the week where all the fantasy guys go and bet on the games. So
that's even worse. I'm anti-gambling. I'm reformed. In a prior life, I almost lost a couple houses. So.
Oh, yeah, we don't need that, my friend. We don't need that,
yes.
My friend.
Yes.
So things kind of played out the way we thought they would. One, the curveball was the I want to concentrate mostly on the upcoming games, but I'd like to talk a little bit about the Vikings Bears.
Yeah, definitely. Let's get into the two elimination games, Vikings Bears, and yeah.
Specific to the Vikings, I mean, what a non-performance. I mean, the Bears weren't even playing their starters at the end, and that's pretty ugly. Pretty ugly. Cousins, for all the good numbers he puts up, has just been really, really. He's like a Andy Dalton of the NFC when it comes to big games. He just seems to shrink. I know you like the Vikings, John. What happened there?
I did. I was high on Zimmer and the defense all year. I mean, Cousins is of course awful, and as usual, the quarterback's going to take a heavy load of the blame. But I'm looking at that when he finally got in the end zone and he got him to 13-10, and the Bears had to look up at the scoreboard and they saw that the Rams game was over. The Rams, were up 40-10, whatever the fuck, and it was 13-10. If their defense could have stopped them there, the Bears probably would have just packed it in. But their defense didn't even step up. That's the strength of this team, and that's how Zimmer got his reputation as a strong defensive guy, and his defense kind of crapped out. So there's a lot more problems than Cousins going on in there.
Agreed.
I thought that Zimmer might have been one of the Ugly Monday, one of those surprise Ugly Monday candidates that comes out of nowhere, where we pretty much knew all the coaches that were getting fired. I thought that Zimmer might be in trouble there, but he got the dreaded vote of confidence, which I guess is a good move, because the GM really can't really put it on him after he's the one that signed off on Cousins. But still, I didn't like the way the defense had that chance to take the game there, and they kind of just laid down, and the Bears just put it right down their throat. And also Nagy, I like it. It was 19-10. They got the touchdown, and he went for a right there, Fred, the 2-pointer, which made it 21-10. And there was no way in fuck that Cousins was gonna get 2 touchdowns. So
yep,
that was nice.
Yeah, that's one of our one of the times we like them using the 2-point conversion from a position of advantage, right, John?
And that was nothing to lose there, so I that's absolutely no problem. So with that.
So that wasn't a very good game, but the Eagles, Nick Foles is on a roll. No other way to say it. He plays great again. Gets knocked out of the game for a little bit, comes back. I mean, granted, the Redskins didn't put up much of a fight, but Foles is coming in hot, and we've seen what a hot Nick Foles can do. So the Eagles sneak in. The Eagles sneak into the NFC playoff, and then, as John alluded to, we can talk about the elimination games in the AFC as well. I mean, for Baltimore, Cleveland, that's about as good as it could have gone for Cleveland without actually getting the win, right? I mean, they have people excited about that team. Baker played good. Fought right till the end. Baltimore got a real good test before the playoffs. I really liked that game, and I liked the result.
Yeah, you got to love it. If there's so much. When was the last time that Cleveland was so optimistic that their fans they wish that opening day 2019 was like tomorrow. They're really psyched up. And man, if you're a Bengals fan, I mean, you got to be. You got some rough years ahead of you because with Cleveland, with Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, Baltimore, and the Steelers with their off the field issues, they aren't going away anyway. I mean, is there a lock stock guarantee in 2019 in the Bengals fourth place right now?
Probably. You never know. We'll see what
Strange
happens.
Things happen, yeah.
We'll see what happens in Pittsburgh, but
definitely optimism in Cleveland. They put up a great fight. And an under the radar thing is it looked like the Ravens defense was gassed, and they weren't going to be able to hold them. All Cleveland needed was a field goal, and those two back-to-back controversial receptions that were like tremendously long replays that actually helped out the Ravens because their defense was gassed, but those long replays gave the defense kind of a little second wind there, and also. Their coach Wink Martindale, their defensive coordinator, dialed up some blitzes on the sideline, and they saw some things. And right after those two receptions, where it was crucial because if Cleveland had got maybe 5 more yards,
5 yards,
field goal range, they shut them down. And that's another thing. You could quibble. Maybe I would have went on the 4th and 10. I would have went for the 57-yarder. With not much wind, there wasn't really that a weather game. So maybe you weigh your chances whether the guy could hit a 57-yarder or whether you could convert that 4th and 10. So
it's a coin flip, right? I mean,
yeah.
The way Baker played, I think they did the right thing going for it.
Yeah, but it was a good win for the Ravens because then they would have been labeled as big time chokers, doing it 2 years in a row on their home field.
Agreed. I mean, Cleveland played good. The Ravens had to play good to win the game like that. I mean, that's a best case scenario for the Ravens because they got a real good test. I mean, that was essentially a playoff game, right? Before the playoffs.
Baker threw 3 picks and they still hung in there. I mean, so Jackson had to play a clean game, and they still barely hung on.
And the other, as you sort of mentioned, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. Pittsburgh wins the game. Doesn't make the playoffs, of course, because Baltimore wins. We have all this stuff come out about Antonio Brown. I don't know if I need to rehash it. I'm sure everybody's read it, but essentially he got mad at Roethlisberger on Wednesday and just took off and didn't come back until Sunday, and they told him he couldn't play. And a lot of buzz around him getting traded. I know there's a big cap hit. Do you see it happening? Because I see, I thought it was just kind of smoke, and I've just, seeing some guys around the league who I respect saying, like even I think Adam Schefter even said that there's a real, very legitimate chance that he's out of there. It's crazy. He's a great player, but I guess being a Giants fan, you have you can appreciate this a little bit. Sometimes it's not worth it for the great player, especially like the Steelers have another number one receiver, really. I mean, Juju's another number one receiver. So what do you think the odds are he goes?
I'd say it's 50-50 at this point. Man, I just hate stuff like this. I'd rather, especially this week, I want to, get into more. And, you watch, NFL or ESPN, NFL Live, whatever the hell your choice is, and you want to see stuff about the 4 games coming up this week. I don't want to see 45 minutes because a lot of it's he said, she said, and speculation and what happened, in the locker room. We're never going to know the full story. But one thing we do know, the Steelers got issues, and that's the difference. Why the Steelers are going home and the Eagles are hanging in there and going in. The Eagles had a lot of injuries, but they got guys stand-up guys like Bennett and Malcolm Jenkins, and they got real pros that don't let that nonsense in the locker room tear them apart, and they hang in there. While the Steelers, you see who their leaders are. They're all fighting each other. They're just fragile egos and all that, and Tomlin can't keep it together, and it finally burned them this year. In the past, they were able to get through it, but it finally burned. It finally caught up with them this year.
Hey, Senior's been saying for years that it's a shoddily run organization and just a bunch of jerk offs.
Listen, I could play devil's advocate, and I mean it's not It's not a similar situation, but you guys with Mr. Gordon and last year with Mr. Butler, so they're not the only team that has issues.
Agreed.
We'll table that for another time.
Oh, agreed. All right, so let's get into the games. Let's just go right in order, John. First game tomorrow. So we're taping on Friday. So tomorrow, 4:35, Colts at Houston. This is a really good first round of the playoffs. Every game could go either way, but Colts at Houston. Colts coming in having only starting the season 1-5, lost one game since then. It was kind of a fluky loss to Jacksonville where they got shut out. Coming in hot, Houston also hot. Also started the season terribly and finished strong. I think the game comes down to, if you want, there's a number of things, but I think what the game really comes down to is, can Houston put pressure on Luck? The Indy offensive line has been, one of the best in football over the last half of the season, and Houston's defense kind of relies on those guys getting to the quarterback because their defensive backfield is not great. So if you've watched the Colts, I mean, Luck is just standing back there all day to throw in every game, except for that Jacksonville game, and they lost that game. So my thought is that it comes down to that. If the Colts are able to protect him against this defensive line like they have against others, I give Indy a real good shot of going into Houston and getting the win. What are some of the things you're looking at here, John?
Well, first of all, this is the Texans' slide. It seems like they're the first game on Saturday, but in the past, their quarterbacks have been the illustrious Tyler
Hoyer.
Yates, Brian Hoyer, and
remember
Brock
the Hoyer game.
And Brock Osweiler, and believe it or not, out of those games, they were 2-1 in those games. But they're not playing against Andy Dalton or Connor Cook. They're playing against one of the great ones, Andrew Luck. So a big difference. Even though their quarterback is quite upgraded over those three, but they're playing Luck, and the Colts are just rolling. I see the Colts getting better every week, and I think the Texans kind of peaked somewhere around week 11 or 12, and I agree with a lot of you say that Texans defense is totally reliant upon Merciless, Clowney, and Watt. And it seems like when they got burned, they kind of wear down in the third and fourth quarter. And this Colts offensive line, they got some beasts. They've been keeping Luck clean. They really cleaned up that offensive line. And I see T.Y. Hilton and Ebron having some big games, and I like the Colts in this too. And also, I like the Colts' defense has improved. They're going to put a lot of pressure. Watson tends to really hold on to the ball. He's take a lot of sacks. I think the defense is going to step up. And a name you're going to hear is Matt Eberflus is going to, after these playoffs, I think he's going to be getting a lot of interviews for head coach jobs, the DC for the Colts.
A great point. I mean, Darius Leonard, first-team All-Pro as a rookie. Pretty impressive. That came out today. Derwin James, also first-team All-Pro as a rookie, which is not easy to do. It all doesn't happen too often. So, great point on Hilton. I mean, if you look back at the matchup, he owns Houston like for a long time. I mean, for not just a 2 or 3 game sample. I mean, he tends to own the Texans. And man, I came into this thinking I like Houston, and I think you may have convinced me otherwise, Mr. D'Amato. So I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go Colts. Home field's not enough to get it done for Houston. They're going to need a huge. Watson is capable, right, of some magic, but they're going to need a flawless game from him. And
I don't see. They're too reliant on Hopkins. That was a tough loss. They lost Demaryius Thomas, and they really get nothing. Their tight ends are really nothing. And I don't know. This guy had a couple of good games. This guy Kiki Kuti had a couple of good games in the middle of the year, but he's been banged up. So
yeah, he might. I mean, if he plays, he's a good slot receiver if he plays, but he may not play. Lamar Miller has been good. I mean, he had to sit a couple of games, but he played last week and played good. And before he got hurt, he was playing good. So, and Hopkins, Hopkins finally getting his due as, he's probably the best receiver in football, one of the 2 or 3 best receivers in football. Incredible stat, 115 catches, 0 drops. And personally, when I go out and play, I have about a 50-50 ratio catches to drops. So it's impressive.
Yeah, they him and Watson can put the game on their shoulders and win it themselves. But this week we got the 3 quarterbacks making their first playoff appearances. You got Trubisky in Chicago, and you got Lamar Jackson, and you got Watson. I think out of the 3, one's going to have a real good game, one's going to have a meh game, and one's going to struggle. And I think Watson's going to be in the struggle department because he tends to hold the ball a little long and take some sacks and fumbles. And plus, I'm not confident in his offensive line and his lack of weapons outside of Hopkins.
He definitely takes chances. He can be a little bit trick or treat. So we'll see. I mean, really, it really is a toss-up game. And we're both picking Indy, but I think I speak for you, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if Houston won the game. But
as we go through these, I mean, I could easily go 0-4 and all these games. So that's why we got some. I'm really looking forward to it. We got some good matchups this week, and when the spread's 1.5,
right.
That means that kind of says that the Colts are the better team if it was on a neutral ground when it's only.
Oh, it definitely is. That's exactly what it says, right? Home's worth 3. That's what they say. So, next up. Tomorrow night, 8:15, Seattle at Dallas, rematch of the Tony Romo fumble the field goal attempt.
Oh, God.
Game. So this is a real interesting style matchup because both teams are going to kind of want to do the same thing, right?
Ground and pound.
Ground and pound, rely on the defense. Given that, I think the game probably comes down to just a couple of big plays, one way or the other. I really like Dallas in this game. And I think I might be being a little bit of the minority there, but I really, really like Dallas in this game. I think the spread's too low. I think they're a good matchup for Seattle. I know they got KJ right back, but Zeke's going to be able to eat against the Seattle defense, and they have the more explosive guys on offense, too, if they do need a big play. Cooper has shown he's very capable of that. Seattle secondary's meh. So Seattle and Baltimore are kind of similar to me in that I think they match up almost better against these high-flying offensive teams than they do against a team like the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are all wrong for Seattle. I think their defense is better than Seattle's. I think they're going to force Wilson to throw. I think their defense is good enough to take away that run. And when Wilson's been forced to throw this year and Seattle's one-dimensional, they're not good. And it's not because of Wilson. It's their line, their weapons. They're a team built on the run. I think Dallas is going to take that away from them. So I like Dallas by double digits here.
I hate to be boring and agree, but maybe not the double digits part. But I like the Cowboys a lot.
Really? It's such a trendy. The Seahawks have been such a trendy Super Bowl pick and stuff. All right.
I know.
Great minds, John. Great minds. The last time we've been on the Cowboys all year, if you remember correctly. We called the miracle upset of the Saints.
Let's not pat each other on the back. Or what did I don't want to offend anybody, but what did the Wolves say in Pulp Fiction? Let's not start sucking each other's whatever.
Popsicles.
Just yet. Yeah. But no, I like that the Cowboys have been home beasts this year.
That's the other thing. Yes.
And also Seattle hasn't exactly been road warriors. Look at Seattle's wins at Arizona, at Oakland, which isn't even at Oakland. The game was played in London, at Detroit. And at Carolina, that's about the only decent win. And even Carolina was kind of shitty this year. So I don't see any tough road victories for Seattle. And Dallas finally got their home mojo together this year. Before this year, they were under 500 in Jerry's house. But this year, they really got that home mojo. That defense, they got the what do you call them, hot boys, whatever the fuck, hot jizz, whatever the hell they got going on there. They're riding that hot boys stuff. With their with Van Der Esch and Smith
Jalen,
and yeah, so I like Dallas, and plus I like the fact that Zeke got a bye week. He got a nice rest last week. He's going to be charged up, and they're going to be feeding Zeke.
I mean, that was the Giants couldn't have drawn that one up any better, huh? They play, they get to feature, Barkley had a great game. It was exciting. And then, but you don't lose the draft position. It was perfect.
Nah, that's another thing I'm violently opposed on. Teams and players, they don't tank. The tanking is more for fans to get all juiced up about. Ooh, we moved up to the 6th spot. But when you're shitty like that, you got to learn how to win eventually. Like look at the Cardinals. They were going all balls out. They didn't care about no first pick in the draft. The players themselves weren't tanking. I mean, it's more for a fans thing.
Right.
And plus, the Giants they picked so shitty that the pick that they're going to make at the 6 is most likely will be worse than the pick that would have been that's going to be taken at the 10th and 11th. That's just that's why teams are shitty the way they are. That's why certain teams have been drafted in the top 10 for 8 years in a row, and they still make shitty picks. If you look at the history, the 10th pick a lot of times is better than the 4th or 5th. So it really doesn't matter. You still got to pick the right guys. Yeah, I hate all that tanking stuff is for loser fans to make yourselves feel better that your team fucking sucks. Believe me, as a Giant fan, I am not happy at all with their current situation. They've been an embarrassment for much of the decade. Ever since they pretty much won that last Super Bowl, they pretty much been an embarrassment and one of the laughing stocks of the league for the rest of the decade. And let's move on.
We got them fired up. Hey, they made a good pick last year, man. That kid's a superstar.
Sure, but they still have they've moved up from their offensive line was about the 32nd out of 32 teams last year, and they moved up. Now they're about the 27th best offensive line. So they still got work to do there, and their defensive line is about 30 out of 32. They were last in sacks, so that's where the game's won, in the trenches. The offensive line
and they do have some problems in the trenches. But imagine how good Barkley's going to be when they have a good offensive line. He might rush for 2,400 yards.
That's if though, and they overpay. That's another problem. Now you get me on a Giant rant, but they Olivia Vernon's one of the top paid defensive linemen in the league, and he is not.
And when
he's not the best.
Sometimes you see these moves and it's like, okay, we can understand. Like when they made that move, it was they're paying way too much for this guy, right?
Solder was solid, but he's not the highest. He's not worthy of being the highest paid lineman in the league. And same thing with Janoris Jenkins. They're a decent player, but if you're going to make a guy the top paid out of his position, he should be the best. And you could also argue that the wide receiver that's one of the top paid is not in the top 5 as far as wide receivers. He hasn't really stayed on the field for a whole 16 games. So, and
he does take a little bit away in the intangible department.
Yeah, I think I said let's move on about 5 minutes ago.
We did. All right. So we both go Indy and Dallas for Saturday.
Yeah.
As a Patriots fan, I'm very much hoping Houston wins that game because I would much rather play them than who we're going to talk about next. But if that holds true, then Indianapolis is going to go to Kansas City, and the Patriots will get the winner of Chargers at Baltimore, 1:05 on Sunday. Rematch of a game 2 weeks ago that was in Los Angeles. I think we've talked about how their home field advantage really doesn't mean anything. So I think you could throw that part of it out the window. But for my money, best game of the weekend. Great, two really, really good teams. Like the Chargers got kind of a raw deal with just, the division they play in. I mean, they're a very, very good team. And this is a tough draw going to Baltimore. I think we previewed the game a couple weeks ago, and I don't think too much has changed, except do you think it helps the Chargers? I mean, the Ravens shut them down in that game, right? I mean, just shut them down. Do you think it helps the Chargers to have played that game and gotten shut down, and maybe they can learn from, pick some things up from that? Or is it more of we're going on the road, we're going to play these same guys, they kicked our ass last time, it's cold, we're from Los Angeles, and it works as a negative?
Nah, at first blush though, the Chargers were 7-1 on the road this year, and the only game they lost was in Los Angeles. So they haven't lost outside of Los Angeles. It's hard to believe, but that's at first glance. But I think in the playoffs, all that goes out the window. And you made a good point. Usually, it helps that they They saw Lamar Jackson and the offense a couple weeks ago. But it's not like Baltimore runs like this exotic offense. They're pretty much just going to smash you, and that's why I'm favoring the Ravens again, because I hate to always go back to my old reliable, but in the trenches, the Ravens, their front seven is one of the best in football. And that's something that you can't just look on film, and that's something you can't beat. The Ravens are just so good with their front seven on defense, and their offensive line is there too. So just winning the battles in the trenches, I like the Ravens, and I like Lamar Jackson. They don't have dynamic receivers, but he uses 3 tight ends like Boyle, Andrews, and Hurst. They're kind of underrated how he uses them. Solid running game. I'm sticking with the Ravens.
So all season, people have been saying the gimmicky Ravens offense isn't going to work in the playoffs. So this is the true test, because they're not. This isn't a cupcake game. The Chargers are good. The Chargers have Melvin Gordon at full strength, which he wasn't for the last game against Baltimore. And I mean, he's a huge part of their offense, so that'll help them. This is another one, man. I can go. I think it's a 3-point game either way, and I know that they just got beat. But if it's a 3-point game and it's Phillip Rivers against Lamar Jackson, I'm going to go with Phillip Rivers. So I like the Chargers in a squeaker, and I think the Ravens. I'm not saying the offense comes back to bite them, because they've played well playing this way, but I think their inability really, I mean, I know that he throws to the tight ends a little bit, but their inability to really move the ball through the air is going to cost them on this one. I like the Chargers like 24-21, something like that. I just think they're a better team.
No, that's a good point about Phillip Rivers, but this is his time to shine and step up. He wants to be one of the great ones. On his resume, name me. I think he's won about maybe 2 big games in his career on the road. Not even big. One was against Cincinnati. Does that even count? And the other game he won on the road was Indianapolis. All those times.
The Chiefs game this year was a pretty big game.
No, I'm talking about in the playoffs.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm talking all time in the playoffs. No. This year definitely a lot of big games. The Chiefs and the Steelers. But I'm talking about overall in the playoffs. He's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback regardless. But if he wants to go as an all-time great, then he's going to have to win it on the road this year. He's got to get that. That's the last thing he wants to put on his resume is that Super Bowl. So he's got to get it done on the road. Let's see it.
Yeah, and I mean the thing is, if they can win this game, they have to be pretty confident going into New England. I mean, the Patriots are not a scary team this year.
How about this? We could see the first wild card matchup in the championship game of all time. It wouldn't be shocking at all if it was Chargers and Colts in the championship game, and that would be funny because the Chargers would get the home field advantage in that. So
that's how crazy this year.
That wouldn't shock me at all. Yeah, the AFC,
especially in the AFC, especially.
It's not like they're bad. It's just that one team isn't like better than everyone else. Kind of like we'll get to like the Rams and Saints are kind of head and shoulders. Maybe you could say that, or at least the Saints. But in the AFC, they're all kind of even. So the sort of 6th and 5th have just a good shot at getting it this year as anybody.
Well, if you look like the Chiefs, I mean, the Patriots beat the Chiefs, the Chargers beat the Chiefs, right? They're the one.
Yeah.
The Patriots have lost to, the fucking Lions, and the Titans beat the Patriots. I mean, they're the 2. And Houston is not – I mean, it's like you're saying. It's really, really – like it wouldn't surprise me if any one of these 6 teams came out. And, I mean, honestly, the team that would surprise me the most would probably be the Texans. If the Texans went to the Super Bowl, it would be I think that would be the biggest surprise for me.
Yeah.
Because I don't see him going into New England and winning.
I don't see him. Yeah, I don't see him going anywhere on the road. But they could take this week. But I don't see it either on the road. Sure.
Yeah, but I'm really looking forward to this Chargers-Ravens game. I mean,
that's good, maybe because it's not going to be high scoring. It'll be maybe 23-20. The last game a couple weeks was 22-10. So.
Definitely won't be a shootout. But it's just 2 really, really good teams. For a first weekend game. I mean, it's 2 teams that whoever wins that could legitimately go and win the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah. And Baltimore, personal feelings aside, but it's a gritty city, and it's a stadium with a lot of. Now they got a lot of playoff history in there. It's always an exciting game
Oh, and
inside
he's a
Baltimore.
great coach. He's a great coach, and
Yeah.
he'll have them ready, and that defense is going to be ready.
Yeah,
The Chargers
that's why
have a
I'm
good
leaning-
defense
That's why I'm
too.
leaning towards them. That's why I'm leaning towards them. I like the experience of
Yeah.
Harbaugh over Lynn, first-time coach.
We'll see, but game of the weekend, at least in my opinion. And then last but not least, what could turn into the game of the weekend if Philly can pull it off. I've heard a lot of Philly at Chicago, 4:40 p.m. I've heard a lot of experts, so-called, I guess we're experts, John. Anybody can be an expert, right? But I've heard a lot of experts kind of saying, all right, this is the game that's the easiest call of the weekend. That Chicago, they're playing well, and they're going to win the game. And, man, I mean, I think it's just as much of a toss-up as the other games. And the reason for that is you have one – I'm going to base it on the quarterback position. I know Chicago's defense is very good, but Foles is really, really playing well now. And I mean, they've kicked it into a different gear. They're playing great offensively, and I really don't trust Trubisky. I really, really, really don't trust Trubisky to turn it over 2 or 3 times. So I guess the path for a Chicago victory is they jump out early, 10-0, 13-0, whatever, and then kind of take the ball out of his hands, right? But if Philly can keep up with them for a little bit, I have zero faith in Trubisky in the fourth quarter of a close game to not make a mistake. And I think he's going to be good, but I don't think he's ready yet. So I know it. I don't know. It's kind of like either a Chicago by double digits, but if the game's close, I like Philly strictly for that.
Yeah, the Eagles definitely have the experience. They have gamers on there, especially on their defense, guys like Bennett and Cox and Brandon Graham. If it's close, they show that they're going to make the winning play. They're not gonna fold if it's close. But I like the Bears. If you look, Foles has lit it up. The Eagle only one time on the road was when he really lit it up, and that was versus the Rams, a very soft defense. I don't think Foles has even come close to playing a defense like this Bears defense. This Bears defense is larcenous. Fuller and knows Alshon Jeffrey is Foles' number one guy, and Fuller and Jeffrey. Fuller knows Jeffrey very well because Jeffrey used to play for the Bears and he practiced against them. So. And with Fuller and Eddie Jackson, I don't see Foles lighting up that Bears defense like he's lit up these teams in the end. Like I said, the only big road game they won was at the Rams, which I'll give them credit for. But it's not like the Rams had that stout defense like the Bears. This defense is nothing. Philly hasn't seen anything like this defense this year, and I think that's going to carry them. But I wouldn't be because I agree with you 100%. If it's close, the Eagles' experience, and plus the Eagles got nothing to play for. Their house money, they were dead and buried, and they're already Super Bowl champs. So this is and they're just rolling with a quarterback who's more than likely is not going to be there next year. So the Eagles can just play free and loose, and if it's close at the end, sure, I think Trubisky's gonna give up 1 or 2, but I still like the Bears' defense to pull it out.
Yeah, and I mean, the reason it's such an interesting game to me is he doesn't have to light them up, right? I mean, the way the Bears' offense is, I mean, if Foles has 17 on the board through 3 quarters, they're probably right in the game, right? I mean, they're probably right in the game. So it's a real interesting game to me. And Philly's defense has been playing better, but I guess out of the 4 games, it's the one where the Bears should be favored. Their defense is incredible, but I mean it's gotta make you pucker up just a little bit. And I like Trubisky. I think he's going to be I think he's already a good quarterback. I think he's going to be very good, but he's just a kid. He makes some questionable decisions.
Yeah, but let's not forget Foles is prone to turnovers too, and he's just been lighting up because those past few defenses, didn't offer much resistance. But this Bears defense is nothing like he hasn't seen. He hasn't seen anything like this all year. I think it's going to be a little bit of a shock to the system.
I know. He's got the Nick magic, though, man. Sometimes guys are just like good in these situations. And
I know.
There's
but
no statistical thing that tells you it should happen, but he might just be that guy. He might just be that guy.
But it's more the Eagles got a solid foundation. Once again, the offensive line it all goes back to the trenches. They got to even with all their injuries, we're all in a secondary, but still they maintain the defensive line. And also Malcolm Jenkins is like a friggin' cyborg. He's played, I don't know, I forgot what it is, how many consecutive games he's on a streak, and he doesn't even come off the field. He's played something like 1,000 out of 1,050 snaps. He hardly even comes off the field.
He's like the Joe Thomas.
The guy's a cyborg. Yeah,
yeah.
And unlike some of the their neighbors in another part of Pennsylvania, the Steelers, he's not a knucklehead. He keeps those guys in line, and that's a big thing about the Eagles. They're pretty much set up for the next 5-10 years. They got such a good combination with Roseman and Peterson, and they got a lot of guys that are. That last year, where a lot of nonsense, a lot of social justice nonsense was off the field, they rose above all that. And they actually bonded together. They got guys like Long, Brandon Graham, Malcolm Jenkins, just guys that are all about keep a team together, and they don't allow no nonsense.
You're talking yourself into it. I can hear you talking yourself into it.
No, I can't do it. As great, I've been on them all year, and because I really admire how they built their team, and I admire a lot of these guys like Malcolm Jenkins. But one thing I'll still never change my mind. I don't admire their scumbag fans, their horseshit eating fans. They don't know dick about football. All they talk about is Wentz and Foles. They don't even appreciate their own players.
I do remember. So. I think it was on one of our other, maybe on the Sports Lounge, that you mentioned you were gonna drop a deuce by the Rocky statue or something to that effect.
Because we went there in January and I didn't do it. So
we'll be back.
We'll
be back, my friend.
I didn't follow up on
that. All right. So it's going to be a great weekend. I can't wait. We're going to be back next week to break down what happened and then to look at round 2. John, was there a Wednesday column this week?
Oh yes, of course.
Excellent.
I previewed these games. I made the predictions that I just explained to you and gave the scores. So go to your local financial institution and bet against those picks, and you'll be a rich man.
All right,
but Raj,
guys.
I just wanted to ask you: are you sticking with your preseason Rams? What was it, Rams and Chiefs?
If I had a gun to my head right now, that's not who I would pick. But I mean. If you pick it preseason and they're still alive, you gotta go. They were the 1 and 2 seed. You gotta go with what got you there. So yes. But if you gun to my head, I would probably pick the. I don't think I would go with either of them. Put it that way.
I'm going Ravens Saints for Super Bowl. So that means there's a chance that one of my picks could be iced by. But by 4:30 on Sunday.
It worries me about the Ravens. Right in the shit pile with the Jaguars.
Jacksonville, Atlanta did not quite work out, so I'm putting the mush on the Ravens. Sorry. Well, we don't have any Ravens fans in our crew. By the way, good luck to Tim Slomka. He'll be at the game rooting on his Bears.
Good luck, Tim.
Unfortunately, the poor bastard's got to be at work Monday, and they got the late Sunday game. The poor guy, but somebody's got to work. And also, good luck to Calvin. Even though we picked against your Houston, good luck with your.
Yep, good luck, guys, and we'll be back next week. John, it's going to be good, man. I can't wait. Hopefully, we can text during the games.
Oh, definitely, Roger. Yeah, we're always ahead of the curve. Did you notice on Ugly Monday there was a big story about all the coaches, and we were all over that.
That's what finger on the pulse.
And also, we've been all over how games are more won in the trenches and how sometimes the quarterbacks get too much, and all of a sudden everybody discovered the big article that the 6 top paid quarterbacks didn't make the playoffs this year. That was something kind of we've been harping on all year. But
you've been all over Matt Stafford all year, and I saw his name on that list.
Yeah,
bum.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that'll do it for us.
Yeah,
short and sweet, guys, and. Again, tune in. We look forward to hearing from everybody in the chats or wherever you may find us. And how about them Cowboys?
Prime time. Oh yeah, Mr. Criscola will be rooting his Cowboys on Saturday night. I can't forget about him. good luck to him. If you have, enjoy it. If you have a team in the playoffs, enjoy it, because it doesn't last forever. Even you Patriot fans, it doesn't last forever.
My whole 20s and 30s. I'm going to be 40 this year. It's going to end. All right, guys. Over and out.
Peace.